Hey guys, Lone Salesman here, and today I just had to record something. I know I've been on a long hiatus. I have been doing some episodes with Ohms on the Ohms Lounge, and also if you check out my YouTube page, I do also have some dark and darker videos and some gaming videos of some of my sessions. But anyway, today we're going to talk about Godzilla Minus One, the latest installment in the Godzilla universe, as you can say. So, the last films we've been seeing lately are the American movies tied to the Monarch. There's a new TV show. They did advertise that. It does look interesting, and maybe if it sparks my interest enough, maybe we can talk about that. But today, I want to talk just about Godzilla Minus One. And what we talk about today is not going to be too spoiler filled. I'm not going to give away too many details, but I do want you to kind of understand what my impressions were and why you should kind of come into this movie with a fresh mindset. First off, I'm going to say this is a very unique film and take on Godzilla. Again, some of it is a lot of stuff we've seen before, but done in a way that's very unique. In a way, it's kind of makes it into a drama, not just a horror film, however you want to see it. One of the reasons is probably the director, Tashi Yamazaki, who also did some films like Always Sunset on 3rd Street, which was a big hit drama film, won a lot of awards and critically appraised. And you see a lot of those elements in this movie, which makes it unique. The first opening scene, I'm wondering what am I looking at? And then boom, it just starts. It hits you hard. Our main character is a Navy pilot with the squadron on a small island, and it just jumps right into the action from there. And from there, you see him on his journey, meeting multiple characters and his direct encounters with Godzilla. And most of the time, when we see Godzilla, our main characters are involved. Now, we have seen this before, and sometimes what we see in a lot of the films, even the latest installments, is our characters kind of take a backseat and aren't always, they might be involved, they might be trying to take down Godzilla, but they're always kind of on the sidelines, whereas these characters are always in the front. You always see them. There is a few scenes where they're not involved with Godzilla, but most of the important ones, we do see them with him. And you're wondering, well, how do they survive all these times? And I was wondering that myself. And to be honest, if you let that go a little bit, you might, like I said, come with a fresh mind. Don't be thinking, oh, how could they survive this? How could they survive that? It doesn't matter. What matters here is this is a very dramatic take on Godzilla. And I can't think of any other film where I hated this dude. Godzilla, I mean, more than anything, any other film. Now, we're used to seeing Godzilla destroying things. I mean, the first movie, again, he's treated like a natural disaster, a force to be reckoned with. And in this one, it's no different. Same as Shin Gojira. It's very interesting how there are some parallels between these movies. And the reason I want to kind of keep that one close, it's the more recent Japanese take on the series. And what these two movies do in a way is they present Godzilla in a real scenario. However, in Shin Gojira, it's more a political take, and there are some military involvement, but it is a very interesting way of dissecting. Oh, okay, if this is real, how would we deal with it? Whereas in this movie, it's more so it is kind of the same way, but it's like we're back in post World War II days where it is kind of revealed it is within that time. However, how that is directly related, they kind of do explain a few things here and there. I think it's not as important as everyone makes it out to be. My first impression when I saw the trailer, I'm like, geez, okay, Japan just got defeated, and now they're dealing with the Godzilla. This sucks. But they kind of don't really take they do take the war in effect in the beginning, they do show the aftermath, mainly Tokyo after all the bombings. You see what the city looks like. So even though there was no monster, city's already in ruins anyway. And then as they slowly rebuild, other things happen, and it's kind of led up in a small way. It's not just he just shows up. They kind of explain again what's happening, and they don't really. I guess I might have lost some of this because I did watch this only in Japanese. There's no subtitles, and while I can understand most of it, not everything, but they do have a sequence where they do kind of show what Godzilla is doing. There is like a time skip between the beginning and towards the middle of the film. We don't really know why Godzilla is doing what he's doing, but we just see what he's doing anyway. And I guess that's not really the important part. The important part is the characters that were shown. And the main character who we see time and time again dealing with his issues, with his first encounters with Godzilla, meeting his new characters, dealing with them, how his actions affect others around him or how others affect him. It's crazy to me. I don't think I've cared about any character in these films more than I have in this film, because again, it's more like a drama. It is shown as a horror, and you do see the death and destruction. Similar to it's strange because like I mentioned Shin Gojira, that movie had its death and destruction. It was more so we would see 15 to 20 minutes of Godzilla in that movie. He'd be doing his thing, destroying everything, and then we deal with the aftermath and the cleanup. So that movie was very well calculated. Whereas this one, we do see kind of an evolution of destruction as well, but it does still have that same weight, and you see like the perspective from the characters, or sometimes even just side characters. We're seeing them like what their reaction is, and you almost feel like you're in their shoes in that moment. So Godzilla is done in complete CGI. I don't think there's many practical effects besides maybe some of the sets and design of the Navy combat, which there is a lot of Navy combat in this movie. There's not many like I said, there's not miniatures or anything, at least as far as I know, or from what I saw. It looked mostly digital. Maybe some practical effects mixed in with digital, but I honestly don't mind anymore. As much as I'd like to see a guy in a suit in these days and seeing him trample on the miniatures and that whole fine craft, I would want to see that again, but I don't think we will. And that's okay. I don't think it's a real deal breaker for me. So if you're going to this movie thinking, okay, is there enough Godzilla in this movie? I will say, yes, there is. And whereas in some other movies, you might think the characters or the people scenes are kind of filler. This one definitely isn't. In fact, I could watch this movie just for those characters and the tension. And what it does is, because you actually care about these characters, you actually do want to see them survive. And when they do encounter Godzilla, you're like, oh, the stakes are high. I just could, even with the latest films, Kong versus Godzilla or Godzilla King of the Monsters, those two movies, I can't say I gave a shit about any of those characters. I mean, and to me, when I would watch it, I was like, well, that's part of a classic Godzilla movie. And now you have this movie showing you, hey, you can do both. You can have a mix of destruction and death, and you can also have meaningful characters to even raise the stakes higher. And where it gets sacrificed, maybe I don't know. I can't really see any weak points, I guess, in maybe believability, right? Maybe if you want to nitpick and say, oh, how could they survive that situation? I will say, admittedly, in this movie, Godzilla's still invincible, but he does take some hits that maybe previous Godzillas maybe wouldn't flinch at. We see Godzilla walking and taking bombshells or bombs, whatever, torpedoes, all that. And he just walks and brushes it off. Whereas in this film, there's some weight to when he gets hit. He does still have an invulnerability factor, let's say. Some certain things do slow him down. So eventually, of course, there is a plot to stop him. I will say I was a little lost here on what exactly they were doing because the explanation was a little over my head. But seeing it get executed was pretty amazing. It's like that classic scene we see where they have the final idea on how to stop him, and then they see if it works. And they try multiple things like in the movies. I think at first they're just kind of throwing ships at him, and of course that's not working. And going back to what I said, it's like we have seen these things before, but the characters who are doing it, and yes, we have seen some of this stuff before, but what elevates it are the characters. They're written in a way where they feel more human than I could ever imagine. And from previous films, I mean, like, or again, comparing it to American movies. Not to say that, like, Shin Gojira, for example, some of those characters were interesting. I can't say I liked them that much. They just kind of felt like the characters that needed to be in the movie, whereas this one was more so Godzilla was the backdrop to these characters, how they deal with this in an emotional way. Whereas in other Godzilla films, we see, okay, how do we stop them? And then that's just the focus. And we don't really see the drama behind it. And while the last one, some of them are technical, or they get into the science lab, or they talk to the military. This one's mostly emotional, and maybe that might not be for everyone, but for me, I could connect with it. Now, the big question is, does this movie connect to the other ones? It does seem like they do ignore the original, obviously. There was some brief explanation that I did miss that explained why they know Gojira or Godzilla for his name, which I hope I can go back to. But other than that, it seems to be unique on its own. Towards the end, it might allude to some other stuff, which you can kind of put your own thoughts to. Overall, I have to recommend this film to anyone who's interested in the series. If it's your first time getting into it, maybe you haven't seen the latest films, maybe you didn't like the American movies and you want to go back to it, definitely check it out. Even if you're not into Godzilla at all and you just like drama films, I think it's the perfect film for that. Like, and the weird thing is, there is a woman we see in the trailer on the train, and she is actually one of those side characters. And the way they deal with her and the main character, it's a very interesting relationship we see. There's nothing really romantic; it's mostly platonic. So where there's no forced romance plot or anything, but I don't think the movie needs that. Plenty of emotion to be going around. Plus, trust me, man. I mean, there are some scenes that I think made me emotional myself. So I wanted to keep this kind of short because, again, I don't want to reveal too much. Maybe when the full movie comes out and I see it in English, I'll do a full Godzilla Minus One explained to go over everything, and that way everything's already out there. But stay tuned for everyone who's in America. You'll be seeing the movie, I think, around December 1st, or international release. That's what it's going to be. And definitely get your tickets. Don't miss this one. Anyway, Lone Salesman out, and I will see you later. See you later. See you later.